Hello, welcome everybody. Let me know in the chat. Can you see me and hear me okay? Thank you so much for joining. I'm seeing some familiar names in the chat. Yay! Thank you, Victor, for confirming. I am currently experiencing my favorite Murphy's Law of working from home, which is literally 5 seconds before I signed on to this webinar, they started doing yard work directly outside my window. So I'm really hoping that you cannot hear the super loud leaf blower happening. I definitely can. It's a little bit distracting, but we're going to power through. It's hilarious. I swear this happens. Anyway, excellent. Thank you, Sally. Okay, so I can handle it as long as it's not distracting for all of you. That's totally fine. And I'm sure the landscaping will look beautiful shortly. So hello. Thank you for everybody who's saying hi. Hi, Harsha. Hi, Utha Yara. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Hey, Sally. Great to see you. Hi, Victoria. We've got lots of different countries already represented. Hi, Florencia. Great to see you. Sylvie, hello. Nice to see you again. Hi, Victor. Hi, Taylor. Great to see you. Taylor, you're my fellow Michigander, right? Nan, hello. Rachel, hello. Great to see you, Rachel. Hi, Anne in South Africa. Sahar is here in Egypt. Fantastic. Okay, super excited to get started and share with you what I like to call the formula for faster lesson prep. Ah, Ohio. That's why I have, because I lived in Ohio for a while, Taylor. That's why I have in my head that we were from the same place. Okay, so just as we get started, something I want to quickly clarify in terms of terminology. When I think of lesson planning, I often use that synonymously with lesson prep, only because I feel like that's created some confusion now where people think when I say lesson planning that I'm talking about like writing a full caliber, beautifully CELTA caliber lesson plan like you see there in the picture where you're filling in your aims and your stages and your assumptions and your anticipated problems and solutions, and maybe you're doing that, especially if you're a new teacher or you're working for a language school that requires that, or you're on a teacher training course and you have to do that. But maybe you're just a working teacher and you're not necessarily writing out an entire detailed lesson plan, right? Maybe you're just creating your slides or preparing your materials. And so that's why I wanted to clarify that I'm really talking about either or in this session. So, however you define being ready to teach your lesson, whether that's just creating, adapting, gathering, and organizing your materials, and or creating a lesson plan, this session is for you. So planning for me doesn't necessarily mean a formal lesson plan, even if I use the word planning as opposed to prep. It might just mean creating my PowerPoint and having a nice outline of what I'm going to do for each activity. So whatever it is for you, that's what we're going to talk about in this session. And my goal, why I'm calling it the formula for faster prep, is to help you be more confident with this, whether or not you have to fill out a formal lesson plan or whether you just have better ideas for activities that you can pull together a lot faster. So whether it's your planner materials, let's talk about how to do it faster. And my goal for you is to be able to go into your lesson with total confidence about what's going to happen, regardless of how much prep that requires for you, right? Depending on who you are, depending on your style, depending on how long you've been teaching, that might mean a lot of prep and planning. It might mean very little, but either way, I want you after this session to feel better about how you're going into your lesson. Okay, tell me in the chat if that sounds good. If you're just joining, feel free to introduce yourself and say hello. And what I want to learn, what we want to cover in this webinar is first of all, why it matters for you to be able to plan or prep faster and still have that good quality of lesson for your students. I'll cover some common planning mistakes that I notice with a lot of the teachers that I work with that could be taking up more time than they should. I'll also, of course, share with you the formula, or I also like to call it the roadmap to faster prep and planning. We'll talk about the importance of how you use materials and resources, not just what you use, but actually how you use them. I'll give you some strategies for troubleshooting along with some extra tips. And then finally, we'll talk about how to put all of this into practice. And I do want to say this up front, just because I'm excited. to be transparent, I am going to open enrollment for my online English teacher program at the end of this webinar. Whether or not you're interested in that program, you're still going to get a ton of value just out of this free webinar. So I promise you it's not going to be one long sales pitch. If you know me at all, you know that I'm not about that. But I do want to tell you this up front just because I haven't opened enrollment in a while, since January, actually, I think. And so I got a little excited and I went really crazy with the bonuses this time. So if you are someone who's been thinking about joining online English teacher for a while, but you've just been putting it off or you've been on the fence, like this, this is the moment. The bonuses are insane. It's all stuff that well, except for one thing that I have never offered before. And bonus number 5, which is very time sensitive, is honestly probably worth more than the program that I'm selling. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop the link for online English teacher in the chat now, just in case you want to make sure you get in on that when the time comes. So that's the link in the chat. The biggest crazy, like it's insane, really. Bonus is the one I said that's worth more than the price of the course, basically. It's only for the first 5 people. The others are time sensitive as well, but not that time sensitive. So just want to drop that link there in case you want to make sure that you're ready. Okay, a little bit of advice as we get started with our webinar. Obviously, feel free to take notes if you want to grab a pen and something to write on. Go ahead, or type on your computer. Obviously, feel free to take screenshots of any slides that you find particularly helpful. This session is being recorded. I will share the recording with you via email after the session if you want to watch back and review. The recording will be available through Tuesday, so for a full week, this coming Tuesday, which I believe is June 3rd. Of course, feel free to treat this like a workshop rather than a webinar. So I love interaction in the chat. I'm going to be asking you some questions. You can use the chat to answer. Whoop, and I don't know why that didn't update. There we go. You can use the chat to answer. Just make sure you set your chat to everyone so that everybody can see your contributions and we can interact with each other. It just feels more fun and energized that way. And then finally, I will save time for a Q&A at the end of our session. So feel free to use that Q&A feature to save any questions. You should see on your Zoom toolbar a little block that says Q&A. That will save your question in a really easy to find place for me so I can make sure I answer it by the end. And of course, definitely watch until the end if you want to get in on the amazing bonuses that I mentioned. And of course, enroll in Online English Teacher. Okay, so tell me in the chat if you're just joining, introduce yourself, say hello, tell me maybe why you became an ESL teacher, or you could also tell me some of these things. So currently, do you teach online or in person? How long does it typically take you to plan or prep a lesson? And then how do you and your students truly feel about your lessons? Like, are you walking away now feeling like that was an amazing lesson and I can tell that my students felt the same way? Are you unsure? And then finally, what would you do with more time in your schedule? Okay, Anna Luz said, I became a teacher because I needed to practice my English curiosity. I love that. And extra money. Awesome. Taylor, starting a new job after grad school at a college. Very cool. I'm going to let answers keep popping up in the chat. As you're doing that, I'll briefly introduce myself just in case you haven't met me before. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. I'm Shannon, and I started TEFLHorizons.com, which if you haven't been there before, feel free to check it out. I've got a ton of awesome resources for teachers, but I basically started it to make quality resources available for anybody in the world, right? Because what I noticed, I've been a teacher trainer for a very long time. So I've been an ESL teacher, obviously, for many, many years. I've also been a CELTA trainer for over 10 years. So I've been training teachers on back-to-back training courses for a very long time. I more recently became a TEFLpreneur. That's my fun word for somebody in our industry who is an entrepreneur, who, offers resources like this for teachers. Sorry, I'm trying to read the chat and talk at the same time. You can tell it's not going well. So I started TEFL Horizons, what, six plus years ago now? Basically because in my experience as a teacher and a CELTA trainer, I noticed that you could find pretty easily tons of random materials out there online, but there wasn't a really good place to go to find actual quality, like CELTA caliber training. So advice and guidance and methodology, like how do you put all of these materials together and actually make sure that your lesson is going to be amazing for your students? So that's how I've sort of become your go-to ELT expert. I wanted to create Temple Horizons to be this place where you could go to get the quality information and training and materials that you need to be your best teaching self. Because really, I want to make quality training accessible and enjoyable because as teachers, we deserve to be the best possible teachers we can be. We deserve it, our students deserve it. And at the same time, you deserve to spend your time actually teaching rather than spending hours and hours just planning. Okay, so I've got some awesome answers coming up in the chat for these questions. Let me just read a few here. Yay, congratulations, Taylor. It's your first day of the new job. Awesome. Sven said it takes no time to prep, but 30 years to get to this point. Amazing. Sally, trying to go overseas to Asia as a business English teacher. Love it. Sylvie says, I teach in person. It takes me forever to plan my lessons, CELTA style. I've been doing this for 2 years. Yeah, I will say CELTA caliber lessons can take a long time to plan. Victor says, I teach online. As of now, my preps don't take all that much time. However, sometimes I feel like my lessons could be better with a better yet efficient, time efficient lesson prep. I've got you. Uh, Uthayara, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm 65, been training students in college. Nice. Victoria, I teach online. It takes way more than an hour to plan for the class. Louise, you said I typically spend 3 to 5 hours prepping for a 1 hour lesson. Love it, but it takes time. Taylor says planning takes me at least an hour, and that doesn't include slides. Nan says lessons are hit or miss. I spent a lot of time planning, especially creating new activities. Okay, lots of good stuff coming up here. I wish I could read all of your comments, but I want to make sure we have plenty of time for today's session. So let's get into it. Hey, Anne, good to see you. The formula for faster lesson prep. Okay, so how would you say, tell me in the chat, a lot of you are saying you spend at least an hour, if not more, planning for an hour lesson. How does your time get divided as an online teacher? Like what exactly are you spending time doing? Whether it's a particular part of planning, like somebody said, creating materials. What else are you doing as a teacher? And this could be planning related or something else. Creating slides. I'm going to add that here. Okay. Anna says, sometimes I feel well about my lessons. Others, I feel this was a terrible class. I mean, I think that's normal. How about admin? Anyone spend time doing admin? Teaching examples, pictures. I'm going to say pictures and design, researching for information. Awesome. Admin, like taking attendance, um, filling in missing students, maybe checking homework, attending PD sessions. Thank you for being here, Sven, for ideas. Figuring out how to best use the breakout rooms with my assistant. Yeah, so like tech training and prep, coordinating with other teachers, maybe. Awesome. Yeah. So what I've noticed is that we think of teaching as just teaching, right? Like when you say you're a teacher, you assume that your time is spent teaching. But when you really think about it, a lot of our time is spent doing admin tasks or PD or tech things. You can maybe lump all of that together. Planning and preparing, whether that's actually writing a lesson plan or creating the slides or finding pictures. Yeah, managing files and resources and teaching, right? So there's actually a lot more that happens with our time than literally being in front of the class, whether in person or online, and teaching. So why does this matter? Like, why are you here? Basically, why is it important for you to become faster at planning your lessons? Like, what I'm really asking is, what would having more time mean for you? Okay, you could become more efficient. And why does that matter to you? Like, why not spend 6 hours planning a lesson? Okay, someone just said, ooh, let's get my fingers on the right, more personal time to have a life. Victor said, a life? What's that? We're teachers. Ah, to make more money. Yeah, more beneficial for students because honestly, like, are you showing up as your best self, teacher self, or personal self if you've just spent 4 hours planning this one 60-minute lesson and you're frazzled and you have to plan six more lessons like that? For professional development or to improve myself for my career, somebody said. Um, more time to watch hockey. I mean, I love it, right? Or whatever. Awesome. Yeah. So lots of things, hobbies. Nobody said spend more time with their family, but I'm sure that's a thing, right? More time with friends and family. Basically, so that you can do what you want to do. And not that we don't love teaching, not that we don't love preparing lessons. It is a fun, creative endeavor, right? But it would be nice to have more time for hobbies. So, how long would you say you usually spend lesson planning? We've had some answers in the chat already. Many people said not that long, but that was 30 years of experience. Some people said at least an hour. Some people said 3 to 5 hours, 1 to 2 hours. And we're getting sort of hit and miss results, right, with that timing. So, if you think about it, if you make $20 per hour teaching, and then you spend an hour planning that 1 hour lesson that you get $20 for, you've actually only made $10 an hour, right? Because it was 2 hours of work for your $20 an hour rate. And I know some language schools pay for planning time, but it's usually not the full rate that you make teaching. Others don't. Or if you're a freelance teacher, then, what you charge per hour is what you're getting. But then if you think about it, if you spend 2 hours planning that same lesson, right, you're actually making less than $7 an hour. Yeah, thank you, Ana Luz. I'm not the most confident with myself when it comes to numbers. I'm like an English teacher through and through. Uh, so it actually really cuts down on your hourly rate. Yeah, Sally just said your math is depressing, Shannon. I agree. Like, if you look too closely, it's not looking too good, right? And $20, obviously, you could charge more than $20 an hour, but it's really affecting your hourly rate um, if you are spending more time planning. Yeah, and you make a good point, Nan. So you say I'm a volunteer anyway. The most important thing to me is that students are actually learning and making progress in their English. Of course, but I do want to say here that making money is not synonymous with not caring about our students. And I think as teachers, we unfairly hear that a lot that, like, well, if you really care about the students and you really care about their learning, then obviously you can't care about the money also. And if you're a volunteer teacher, that is fantastic. But I'm assuming that either you don't need income or you have some other way that you're making money, right? As full-time teachers, like as teachers where this is our full-time job, we deserve to make more than $7 an hour. Like, we should be able to make a livable wage. Nobody says to a surgeon, well, if you really cared about helping people and saving lives, you wouldn't take the money, right? You would volunteer. Like, we're trained, we know what we're doing. I'm not saying we're brain surgeons, obviously, but like, we deserve to get paid for the thing that we love and the thing that we're good at. We deserve to get paid well for changing our students' lives. And we deserve to do our hobbies. We deserve to spend time with the people we love. We deserve to relax. Like, we deserve to not be spending 6 hours doing something that we're getting paid 1 hour for. So, this is why cutting down on planning time is more important for me. And we've talked about some reasons why planning takes so long, right? Many of you said it's things like this: finding materials, adapting materials, creating materials, designing your slides, practicing technology, right? Deciding what to teach and how to teach it. Let me know in the chat if you relate to any of these things. Maybe personalizing your lesson for students' needs. So lots of reasons here. But if you don't do that, the alternative is Maybe you're teaching lessons where they're not very structured and they end up being kind of just chatting, like, talk about this. Or maybe there's a lack of cohesion, like you're just putting a random string of activities and busy work together, but there's no overall aim that you're building up to. Maybe you're just going right down the book page with little awareness of why you're doing those activities. And so all of that could be resulting in less progress and learning for your students, and it feels less empowering for you that you're just kind of phoning it in. So I think it's frustrating for a lot of teachers, and let me know if you've experienced this as well, that like either you spend 6 hours and you feel really, really good about your lesson, or you end up kind of phoning it in, but then you can actually have a life. My proposition for you is that what if you didn't have to choose? Yeah, exactly. Victoria, you also make a good point. Sometimes we're working on a few part-time teaching gigs and then time becomes even more of a factor, right? Because you basically have like two or three different jobs that you're trying to organize. Yeah, and we just had a comment, I can't concentrate on something for too long. Yes, so we want to make this planning process easier. So here are a couple of planning mistakes or maybe habits that could be taking up more time than you need. And just a quick note, a few people are raising your hand. There's no way for me to like call on you or let you talk in the mic. So if you have a question or comment, just put it in the chat or in the Q&A. Okay. Ooh, there's already a good question in the Q&A. I'm definitely going to get to that in the Q&A, if not sooner. Okay, so some planning mistakes that could be taking up more time is not having a structure or template to follow. So trying to create everything from scratch. Maybe you're trying to do too much in one lesson. Maybe you're thinking that more activities equals more learning, when often, ironically, it's the opposite. Maybe you're spending time doing things that don't really matter. And maybe it's just that you don't have a toolbox, as I like to call it, built up already of resources and activities and materials and ideas. So that's what we're going to talk about in this session. And let's start with this one. So if you don't have a structure or template to follow, the alternative is to use a lesson framework. This is the solution to not having that structure. So when I say a lesson framework, what does that mean to you? Tell me in the chat. Yeah, I mean, and you said, what if you're reusing the same materials, for example, teaching the same class more than once to different students and getting mileage out of a well-planned lesson? Absolutely. And I think for me, that helps make it worth spending more time planning a single lesson, right? Is that I can teach it over and over. But sometimes that doesn't happen again for like a few months or a year, right? Or even longer, depending on your teaching situation. And so it would still be nice if I could do that same thing, but cut down on planning time. Okay, so we've got a template, Celta frameworks, lead in, present, practice, produce. That's a good example. Yep, specific goals for the lesson. Excellent. So no matter what you want to call it, it could be any of these things, some sort of outline or template. It's a repeatable pattern, right? A series that you can follow, and it stays the same anytime you teach that particular type of lesson. So the solution that lesson frameworks provide, they give you that clear structure. They can also help you clarify and enhance the material in the book. So no longer are you just going right down the page blindly because the next activity is there. You actually know why you're using each activity, and it gives you power over the book. So you're using the book now to its full potential rather than just blindly following it. It also ensures that you're going to have a limited focus in your lesson, which is going to lead to achieving the aim of that lesson. And if you're using the frameworks well, they provide actually built-in student-to-student interaction and engagement. So you're never going to run into that situation where you're like, so and so, how was your weekend? And what about you? Right? Like where you're just trying to run down the clock on your lesson, which is not the most fun and effective. The bottom line with lesson frameworks is that they're a way to plan a lesson that works. And typically, they will allow you to plan a lesson with less stress and less guesswork. So you don't have to sit there and think, okay, now what activity should I do next? It's built into the framework. So all of that is going to cut down on time because you don't have to design everything from scratch in your head. You're just following the pattern. It's already there for you. You're just slotting in the appropriate activities. So the lesson type determines which framework you use. So quick pop quiz, tell me in the chat, what are the different lesson types that you can teach? Give me one or give me a bunch. Okay, PPP would be more of a framework. I'm just talking about types of lessons. Yes, grammar, vocab, good. Reading, speaking, listening, vocab, grammar, functions, writing. No, no, you're good, Vanessa. That is a framework. Excellent. Okay, I think we got almost all of them here, if not all of them. So basically, there are seven main ones. We've got the four skills and the three systems. And then this is going to determine the type of framework that I use. For example, PPP, which Vanessa brought up in the chat, that's typically used for a system, right? Or situational. Yes, exactly. That's also used for systems. Grammaring, Olga said. Love it. Versus using, if we have a skill, we're going to use a reading less or a receptive skills framework or a productive skills framework. So, how many of these seven things should be the main focus in a 60 to 90-minute lesson? The main focus. One, excellent. Yes. And maybe one could be a secondary focus or sub aim. Yeah, one almost two. That's a nice way to say it. One and a half, perhaps, in a 60 to 90-minute lesson. But one is a good rule of thumb here if it helps you narrow it down. So that one focus before I move on becomes your main aim, and that's going to determine your framework. So if I'm teaching a vocabulary lesson, right, that's my main focus, and now I'm going to use an appropriate framework for a vocabulary lesson. Obviously, students may be doing more of these things, right? Probably in any lesson, speaking will be happening, listening will be happening, right? Anytime we're using English, vocabulary is happening, but that doesn't mean that it's the main focus. So let's look at an example of how a framework works. So tell me in the chat, let's imagine we're teaching a reading lesson. We've chosen that as our main aim, our main focus. Without overthinking this, just tell me, what do students need to do in a reading lesson? Like in order for me to say, this was an effective reading lesson, what needs to happen? Yeah, students need to read. Awesome. I told you not to overthink it. You understood the assignment. And they could be reading in different ways, right? Like gist, detail, etc. And we need a way to check that they actually understood. So check comprehension. Yeah, maybe scanning. That's another one. Pre-reading activity. Excellent. And why does that need to happen? So like warm up, set context, maybe. Post-reading. Again, why does that need to happen? Maybe, yeah, maybe they'll need to deal with some vocab in the text. Somebody said pre-teach. Yep, we need a way to check understanding or comprehension. We need to activate background knowledge. Good, that could happen sort of in this stage. Excellent. So lots of stuff needs to happen, and we know this inherently. In order for me to prove or to know that my students are getting good practice with reading, these things need to happen at some point somehow. So really all we're doing with a framework is taking these things and putting them into a logical order, right? Creating a template where no matter what all of these things are going to happen, we can obviously just swap out the text and the activities, but we know that this stuff more or less is going to be accomplished again in a logical, cohesive way. So that becomes our map of activities or our formula, whatever you want to call it, our framework, where we have specific activities that happen or specific stages, if you will, anytime we teach a reading lesson, and we know that the aim is going to be achieved. And we understand from our brainstorming why each of those things is happening, right? So we have in a reading lesson framework, we've got the stages. Each activity is going to be one stage, more or less. And then we have the stage aim. So the reason why. And maybe the reason why is to practice different types of reading, sub skills of reading. And we could swap one of these out with scanning if we wanted to, or add a scanning stage to practice detailed or intensive reading. Or maybe it's to do things like set context, engage students, activate background knowledge, right? Or to practice fluency and let students react to the lesson. So any of these things are just getting organized into a nice logical progression. And we know that as long as we're using these stages and we understand the aim of the stage, now this gives me power, right? So each stage basically becomes a stepping stone. This is how I like to think of it. Each of these stages essentially becomes a stepping stone on the path to achieving my main aim. So this helps me kind of cut through all the noise. It helps me take out all the guesswork of planning. I know that as long as I follow this path, I'm going to get to my main aim. The lesson is going to be engaging and useful for my students. I might then have something else, another activity on the coursebook page or a game idea or whatever it is that's really fun and looks really cool. But I know if it doesn't fit in my framework, if it doesn't fit on my path, that doesn't mean it's a bad activity. It just means it belongs in a different lesson, right? It's over here in the forest on another path. It's not on this path of this lesson. Does that make sense? So, as I mentioned, the problems that you solve by using a lesson framework, if you have not enough structure in your lesson, right? The framework obviously gives you the structure, it's done. If you're worried about following the book too closely, like you're just going right down the page and you're not really bringing the material alive, the framework is what gives you the power to own the book, like to take control of the exercises in the book. Now I know, okay, I'm looking at this material, but now I'm evaluating it with purpose. Now I'm thinking about, okay, what here, if anything, could be my lead in? What here is a gist task or a detailed task? And that if it doesn't fit, I can cut it out or bring in something else that does fit. I know the aim of each stage with a framework, and so that's how I can evaluate the material that I have. If you're trying to do too much in one lesson, and this is common for teachers, I think especially newer teachers, where often if you work for a language school or you're using a course book, you get something like this. This is a 2-page spread in American English File 3, which is the intermediate level. So just looking at this, thinking about planning a lesson, and this is just one fold, right? Like one 2-page spread. How are you feeling about this and planning this? Maybe a little bit overwhelmed. There's a lot going on here, right? We have grammar. Yeah, overwhelmed. Taylor says we have grammar, we have pronunciation, we have reading and speaking, we have a text, we have a bunch of pictures, we have a headline, we have these quotes up here, we have a reference to another page here, we've got audio tracks, we've got highlighted words. A lot of you are feeling overwhelmed, you're saying. And so if you have a framework, that goes away. Yeah, Vanessa says too many skills systems at the same time. Sally says how much of the content is really good content. And I think that is a really interesting thing that you just said, Sally, because my personal opinion is all of it and none of it. I don't really believe that there is such a thing as good or bad content when it comes to lesson planning. I've planned a lesson around a single picture. I've planned a lesson around a novel, right? Like yeah, Umran says it's a normal English book in Turkey, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I actually love this book series. I'm not giving this to you as an example of like a terrible course book. I love this course book series, but that doesn't mean that this is not too much, right? This is still too much. It's still overwhelming. Course books are there to be the raw material for your lesson. A course book doesn't know how long your lesson is. They don't know what you did with your students yesterday or if you haven't met them since last week. They don't know your students' interests. They don't know what you need to, right? Like they don't know any of that. It's just, here's a bunch of stuff that you can use. Your job as a good teacher is to take that and build it into, sculpt it into your lesson. So that's what the framework allows you to do is you can cut through all of this and just say, what do I want to teach today? Just scanning this, it looks like grammar or reading would be the best options. So if I pick grammar, cool, I can use my grammar lesson framework and just pick and choose what I need here, and I know what I need if I know the framework. Or I want to teach reading, okay, I'll use my reading lesson framework, and again, I know what I need, so I'll look over here at the reading section and just match my activities with my stages. Exactly. Beautifully said, Panaga or Panaga just said it's a map we need to pick and use. Exactly. Actually, and like the course book is kind of the terrain, right? The framework is our map. So if you are worried about not having one clear aim, again, the framework is going to give you that because you've picked the aim to determine the framework. And if planning is taking you forever, there's a really good chance that it's because you're doing one of those things. Like you're not sure how to use the material that you have, and the framework is the answer to that. It's There's no guessing, there's no stress. You're now in control of the material, and all you have to do is quickly put together this puzzle that you already have. And yeah, Sarah says backward design is beneficial. I love that. If you know the main aim, then you can work backwards and make everything else fit around the main aim. So you can use the framework, the appropriate, relevant framework, to design really any type of lesson, right? Whether it's a reading lesson around material in a course book, you can use that exact same framework and now turn around and design a lesson around a funny article that you found on the internet. You can design a listening lesson around something from a course book, or like I've designed a listening lesson using the framework around an episode of Shark Tank, right? Whatever you want, it gives you that power to take random material and build a lesson out of it. You could design a grammar framework from this article I found about spoiled celebrities, or let's see, where's the writing one? I found a couple Yelp reviews online and designed a writing lesson around it because I know the writing lesson framework. So that's the power it gives you that, yes, it will now take a little bit of time to create the actual activities, but the planning itself, knowing what you need, is done. And you obviously can then decide how much time you spend on activities. So a few additional time-saving tricks. Get as much mileage as you can out of your materials. I think another thing I often see teachers do is they'll find a great piece of material and they'll plan one lesson around it. But actually, any piece of material that you find, if you know the frameworks, you can recycle that material and plan multiple lessons. So think about a single text. Tell me in the chat, what are your ideas? What could you do? What kind of lesson could you plan with a single text? Oh, so many good questions are coming up in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna get to all the Q&A. Okay, vocabulary, yes. Okay, let's start with the most obvious, right? Reading lesson. We just talked about that. So you could use the reading framework, but you could also vocab lesson with particular, like maybe you find a bunch of cool adjectives in the text, and so you do a vocab lesson on adjectives. Um, Tell me, okay, grammar, yes. Grammar lesson on like a specific grammar point that you find multiple examples of in the text. Grammar in text. And I would recommend choosing obviously one piece of grammar, right? Like maybe you notice a couple of examples of conditionals in the text. So you teach a conditionals lesson. Used as a script. Interesting. I would love to hear more about that. Oh, debate. So like speaking lesson, debate topic from text, depending on what it is. Model text for a writing lesson. Love it. Transform it into a podcast. Interesting. Okay, that's another cool speaking idea. Pronunciation. Dictogloss is a great grammar activity or potentially other activity. Okay, if you're saying pronunciation, the only thing I want to point out here is I don't want to suggest using a text to read out loud. We don't want to read a whole text out loud for pronunciation. And if you want more information on why, remind me in the Q&A and I can go on my whole rant, but I don't want to do that quite yet. But tons of good information and ideas are coming up here. Debate, reading, listening, I guess you could like record it. I wouldn't recommend reading it out loud for a listening lesson. I'm also going to say functional language. Maybe you pull functional language out of the text or you use it as like a jumping off point for a functional language exercise. So tons of ideas here, right? And obviously, maybe you don't want to use the same text for like 6 days in a row, six different lessons, but certainly at least two or three. Like I could teach a reading lesson one day and then using that same text, pull vocab out of it and teach vocab in the next lesson. Or that same text could now become my model text for writing in the next lesson. So typically, anytime I'm going to go to the trouble of finding a piece of material, I'm going to get at least a couple of lessons out of it. Okay, excellent. So, like, for example, this Shark Tank lesson, I found a clip of Shark Tank. It was like this one guy's pitch, the Doorbot guy, if you remember that episode. I first designed a whole listening comprehension lesson around it, and then I planned a whole functions lesson around it, and then a whole speaking lesson around it. There was also vocab that I could do there, right? There's also writing that you could do. Like so much could happen. Okay, I think we need to talk about the reading and pronunciation thing. We'll get to that in the Q&A. Second piece of advice to save time, you can buy ebooks or find PDFs of books and then use them for material. Oxford University Press has a ton of free resources on their website. If you haven't checked them out yet, their website is elt.oup.com. You can buy their ebooks, but you can also find a whole bunch of resources for free. They have something on their website called the Oxford Teachers Club, I think it is. You have to put in your email address, like create an account, but it's free. Once you do that, you can access a lot of the teachers' books for their book series as PDFs that are just there that you can download. And then you can use a lot of the activities. Like at the back of the book, they have a whole section of grammar activities, vocab activities, speaking activities. So even if you don't buy the student book that goes with it, you can still use those activities and build lessons around them. So the extra resources there are fantastic. I also advise that you keep some sort of folder or file. Like when I used to teach in person, I had a literal binder of activities. Now they're folders on my desktop. Because once you know how to adapt activities, that can become your teaching toolbox where you'll maybe be teaching one grammar lesson and you'll remember, oh, yeah, there was this great activity about a different grammar point that I've used, right? I can adapt that same activity and just slot in different grammar and it will work great. Question, can we access articles? I'm guessing you're asking here. Some of the teachers' books have like reading articles in the back and they have some videos as well that you can download. You can also keep your previous lessons organized in some sort of system so that you can very easily find stuff that you need. Like, okay, I need an upper intermediate grammar lesson. I know exactly the pathway on my desktop to find that, where I've organized everything. I have materials, and then it's divided by level, and then it's divided by lesson type. So for me, it's very easy to go in and like pick and choose different activities or resources from previous lessons I've taught because I have them all organized that way. Another piece of advice, if you haven't tried this before, it is weirdly effective. Set a timer. So especially if you're somebody who can agonize over like the perfect picture for your lesson or color or formatting, use a framework and then set a timer and say like, if I absolutely, like, let's pretend I had to teach this lesson 30 minutes from now. Whatever I have done is what I'm going with in front of the students. Set your timer for 30 minutes and see how much you can get on a slide in 30 minutes, even if it's not perfect. And again, if you're using that framework, just have, okay, this slide is my lead in, get something on it. This is my just task. Is there something in the book? Do I need to create something? Next slide is vocab pre-teach, right? And just see if you can get the bare bones done in 30 minutes and then add details later. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that you literally do this 30 minutes before you're teaching, but if you want to cut down on your planning time, try setting a timer and seeing how much you can get done. So yeah, use the framework. And then from there, we just use the puzzle matching strategy, right? So decide what lesson you're teaching, what type of lesson you're teaching, assess what's in the book, take screenshots of that and add it to your slides, and then build out the other stages as needed. Taking screenshots once you're using a book, like this is another page example from American English File Intermediate. All I would do, like let's say I want to teach this lesson on second conditionals, right? I could just take screenshots of these pictures and take a screenshot of the first exercise, stick those on a slide. There's my lead in, right? Done. My lead in is done. I've planned it. It's on my slide. It looks pretty good. Obviously, I would take this out, but this is what I could show my students. I've got the task, I've got the pictures, go into breakout rooms and talk about it. That's it. Awesome. Sally said Google Snip is also a great tool. Good suggestion. And then finally, something that's helped me be a ton faster at using things like PowerPoint and Google Slides is to use tricks and shortcuts. So there are a ton of helpful keyboard shortcuts that I use on my Mac, like duplicating slides, for example. So that's actually how I could make a list like this. Maybe I want to make a list where things appear step by step. I would simply type this whole list, and then I can duplicate my slide a whole bunch of times. You can see it appearing over here. And then I'll start with the first slide, delete all of these. Next slide. Whoop, I think I already did the first one. Yep. Delete all of these. Delete, and so forth. So that now when I scroll through, each thing appears, but all I'm really doing, if you notice, is just scrolling slide by slide down here from the slide previews. That's also how I create this list in the first place. Like once I have the text the way I want it, like let's say I want to give this some background color. Let's see, maybe I want to make this, I don't know, light blue. Now I don't want to have to do that again every single time and find the size and the color and blah, blah, blah. I just highlight Command D, it duplicates, get the spacing where I want it, and then type in the new list item, whatever it is. And then it saves a ton of time from having to reformat every single time. I will also just have a stock photo website or Canva. I'm a huge fan of Canva open as I'm planning. And then that way, if I want to just take a quick screenshot of something rather than taking the time to download it, I can just take a quick screenshot, drop it onto my slide, and keep going from there. Canva.com is the one I mentioned. I love Canva for free stock photos. You could also use something like Pixabay or Pexels. Those are really helpful as well. So the more you use these techniques, the more you're going to be able to build up your teaching toolbox and then reuse and reformat previous lessons and slides and activities. So I essentially at this point basically never open a blank PowerPoint. I almost always, even to plan these webinars, will pull up a slide presentation that I've used before because I'll use kind of similar themes. Like I like to do a picture with this little like colorful circle behind it. So I might just change the color of the circle and then swap out another picture, right? Rather than having to design all of this from scratch. I'll also repurpose activities that I find in books, course books, or other resources. So I'll just sort of keep a mental note or save it on a file, in a file on my computer. And that way I can just swap out different language for the activities that I need. I'll even update past lessons. As Anne was saying before, like you can reuse lessons for new students or new classes. Maybe you just update them or swap out an activity or reuse an activity as a review. And then finally, the more you can invest in training and professional development to learn, and I like to call it steal ideas, the better, right? Like most of us are coming up with these ideas because we see them demonstrated somewhere else. Or yeah, like Taylor says, I bought a simple slide template on TPT. Awesome. And then you can just update it. Yes, I like Sally's terminology, borrowing maybe rather than stealing. But I love being able to share ideas like this with other teachers in our industry. Finally, make this your mantra. Done is better than perfect. It just needs to be done. And if you're using the framework, it can't be that bad, right? I think the only way your lesson is not going to be great is if you just go right down the page in the book because you don't know what else to do, or you show up with nothing and you're just trying to get the students to chat for 60 minutes. In that case, like, why couldn't the students go to a free language exchange or just buy the book themselves? But as long as you're using a framework, you know why you're doing each activity, the slides do not have to be perfect. If after all of that, you feel like your lessons are still taking too long, ask yourself a few questions. So, are you always starting with the lead in? If so, maybe you need to plan backwards, right? Maybe you need to start with the main aim task and then work backwards from there. Often I will see that teachers who start with the lead in, they get really excited about doing something super elaborate for the lead in. And then that takes 30 minutes. And then, oh my God, I've already been doing this for half an hour and I only have one stage done, right? Instead, if you tell yourself, okay, I know that I need this detailed task for this reading lesson, the lead in can be something that you just tack on. Okay, at 5 minutes, what's the topic of the text? Oh, it's about information overload. Okay, I'll ask my students, what does information overload mean to you? Pop on a good picture. Done, right? Maybe you're getting bogged down with the details, in which case you just need to refine your understanding of the frameworks. What really matters and what doesn't. If you're not using a framework, that could be taking longer because you're trying to figure out what kind of activity to do next or trying to find a random activity to do next rather than just knowing what comes next. And maybe you're not exploiting your materials. So often I'll find that teachers spend just as much time looking for helpful materials, with which to plan their lesson as they do actually planning the lesson. So if you spend the time finding an article or a picture or a video clip or whatever, get at least 2 lessons out of it. And reuse your PowerPoints or your Google Slides or whatever so that you never have to start from scratch. Okay, tell me in the chat, what are your biggest takeaways and favorite ideas? And then I've got some time for Q&A. And if you have to leave early, just make sure you watch the recording if you're interested in the bonuses that I'm going to bring up because they are massive and never before offered. Okay, tell me in the chat, big takeaways. What are you going to try? What did you find most helpful? What are you excited about? And also let me know in the chat. Yes, Sally says, reminding me to use the lesson frameworks I used in CELTA. Awesome. Exploit materials fully using a framework, Florencia says. And is this something that you want to get better at? Using a framework, planning a lesson around, as Beatrice says, one main focus. Reuse, recycle, love it. Are you interested in getting better at using lesson frameworks, planning faster, creating more fun, engaging lessons, and being able to plan any lesson around any material? Yeah, Sally says idea about Canva and elt.oup.com. Awesome. Oh my gosh, Canva has changed my life. Umran just said Canva idea makes so much sense. Yeah, it has changed. It is amazing. So if this is something you want to keep practicing and continue to get better at, definitely join me in my online English teacher program. Doors are open now. And again, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat for you one more time. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this program, and then I'm going to get to your questions. So Online English Teacher is the program that I have created essentially for you to be able to teach any course, any lesson, or any student successfully. It's called Online English Teacher, so obviously online, but actually everything that you'll learn in the course works for in-person lessons as well. You will also, at the end of the course, be able to plan far better lessons in a fraction of the time. You will end up with a very well-stocked teaching toolbox, as I like to call it. So basically a lesson plan library and resource bank. And it will allow you to connect with your fellow teachers around the world who are also in the program. So this is what just a couple of the teachers have said who have graduated from this program. Dan said, I feel 1,000 times more prepared now. Planning used to take hours, not anymore. Anna from Germany said, my prep time decreased immensely after Online English Teacher. Everything made so much sense after my CELTA. I find myself wishing I took it before CELTA, but either way, totally worth it. And Kat mentioned that it was completely different from any other program she had attended, which was a really nice thing to hear, actually, in my opinion. And then these are a few more things. So Jennifer said the templates and frameworks are truly magic. And she also mentioned I'm so much faster at lesson planning now than I was when I first started. Magdalena did the self-study course and mentioned that basically that's because she had a young family and she needed time. And she said, after each module, I felt better equipped to become the teacher I feel called to be. Evan said it really motivated her to start her own freelance teaching business. So, online English teacher is for you if you are anyone who wants to improve your current teaching at all. If you're new to online teaching or you're hoping to start teaching online, if you're a CELTA graduate and you're looking for a way to really deepen and sharpen your skills, or if you're thinking about CELTA and you want the best possible way to prepare, or even if you just want to be a freelance teacher and find more direct students and make more money. So here's how Online English Teacher works. It is divided into 10 modules. My recommendation is to do one module a week. In that case, it's a 10-week course. But you could also, these are lifetime access. So once you have access to the course, you can take as much time as you need to work through all of the modules. And as you can see, each module focuses on one particular type of lesson. So module 2 is all about how to teach reading. Module 4 is vocabulary, and so forth. And then 9 and 10 are kind of the above and beyond. So once you've mastered how to teach all of the individual types of lessons, Module 9 is going to show you how to take that knowledge and learn how to build whole course plans or design an entire syllabus, and also teach in different contexts like business English or one-to-one. Module 10 is more about the logistics of building a successful online teaching career. So if you want to freelance and figure out how to sell asynchronous courses or how to price your lessons, how to sell packages of lessons. You need a contract for your private students to sign. All of that is included in Module 10. And then obviously in each of these lesson type focused modules, we're going to go really in depth into how to use each framework, how to teach a reading lesson based around any material, for example, and really cut down on the time it takes. So within each of these modules, here's what's included. So there is an online English teacher guide. This is fillable. It's a PDF that you can download and then actually type into as you work through the course. And there's a chapter for each individual module. And as you can see, there's a ton of different activities here. So there are things like do and don't quizzes that you'll take at the beginning of the module and then learn as you go through the module whether you were correct or not, right? You'll get insight as you go. There are places to take notes on the videos. There are helpful guides like references on each of the frameworks. There's also a focus video, which is like the how-to video for each of the modules. And then again, as I mentioned, there's a place to take notes as you're watching the video and the guide. You will then get to observe me teach real students that type of lesson. So for example, Module 6 is the one about how to teach functions. You'll watch the how-to video, then you'll actually watch me teach a functions lesson that I recorded to real students. So you'll see exactly how everything works in practice. And then if you want to go ahead and download the entire lesson that I taught, lesson plan, and all the materials, you can. That is included. So you can steal my lesson that you actually have seen me teach for each of the lesson types. You get the lesson plan and all of the materials, the full PowerPoint. And then finally, any additional tech tutorials that you need are included as well. So whether that's creating a writing lesson, like Sally earlier, you asked, how do you teach a writing lesson online? There are tech tutorials for exactly how to set that up, like creating a Google Doc that is interactive and students can do pair writing or individual writing and be able to read and edit and comment on each other's writing that they're creating. And then finally, like any additional tutorials, like there's a special video just on CCQs, concept checking questions for vocab and grammar. And there's a community where you can interact with your other fellow online English teachers, as well as a whole bonus module on how to create board work and visuals. Oh, thank you so much, Sally and Anne. Sally says any of Shannon's courses are terrific. And Anne says, I'm a CELTA and online English teacher graduate. Online English teacher has been invaluable to me in my online career. It is highly recommended. Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate that. So the course itself is hosted on Teachable. It is very user-friendly. This is a screenshot of what it looks like from the inside. So as you can see, it's really easy to just go lesson by lesson. You can also skip around if you want to. So like if you've got a grammar lesson that you need to teach tomorrow, you could skip right to that module and make sure you get all of the information or just download my grammar lesson and teach that if you want to. So you'll basically just create an account and then you log in anytime you want. You have lifetime access whenever you want and access any of the course at any point. The course basically, as I mentioned, is completely self-study, but there is an option to add on a live practicum. So if you actually want hands-on teaching practice with real students, with me, you can do that as well. Either way, you're getting the entire self-study course. So all 10 modules self-study are included no matter what. The only question is, do you also want to do 8 weeks of live online teaching? So if you opt in for that version, you will teach 8 live lessons online. So again, 1 lesson a week, it's over 8 weeks. For each lesson, you'll have the focus video, like you'll have the module. So they go in order, right? So like, for example, week 1, you teach an introductory lesson. Week 2 of the practicum, you teach a reading lesson. So module 2 will inform how you plan that lesson. Then we'll meet before you teach one-on-one for guided planning. You'll teach, I bring the students, you show up and teach them, and then we'll do a feedback session afterwards. You also have the option of doing asynchronous peer observation. So basically, I record the lessons and I upload them in a place that's private just for the teachers in that cohort. So if you want to watch each other's lessons on your own time, you can. You also get a teaching reflection journal that's additional that you can fill in as you go if you want to sort of give you that like extra professional development. And I will write you a personalized recommendation letter because I'll be able to speak to your teaching ability at that point. So the upcoming practicum is from June 9th to August 9th. It is 8 weeks total, but there's one kind of additional, it's like week 0 at the beginning where we do our initial planning session together. And that is first come, first serve. I have space for 6 teachers on this session. So if you want to do this upcoming live practicum, definitely sign up sooner rather than later to get one of those 6 spots. Okay, so the fee for this program, as many of you probably know, the cost for a typical CELTA program is anywhere from $2,000 to maybe $3,500 or more. Online English teacher, in addition to what CELTA includes, because I'm also a CELTA trainer, so CELTA doesn't include lifetime access to all the materials, even if you do it online. Online English teacher does. In Online English teacher, you're also getting 8 ready-made lessons and observation videos and PowerPoints and all the materials. You're getting the fillable Online English teacher guide, which you can keep and continue to use forever. And you're getting 8 hours of teaching practice as opposed to 6, spread out over 8 weeks. So it is a lot less stressful, I will say. So if you do the live practicum version, the cost is only $12.97 total. So that again includes the entire self-study course plus the 8-week live practicum with me. If you do just the self-study version without the live practicum, it's only $7.97. There are also, as I mentioned, a couple of bonuses that I am incredibly excited about. So I have not offered almost any of these before, and they are huge. So this is the part you're going to want to pay attention to. Okay, the first thing I have offered before, but I love it. I love to offer this as a bonus. It is the TEFL Horizons Grammar Guide. So this grammar guide is only available separately as a special bonus in situations like these. As you can see, it covers all of the different verb tenses, plus a lot of the other common grammar points that come up in typical English courses. It has pretty much everything you need. So there are CCQs already done for you. You can kind of see those here. I know it's probably a little bit blurry. There are common points of confusion covered for you, pronunciation, meaning, form. So it's a really perfect reference for you to use to brush up on your own grammar or to just give to your students as a really nice take home. Okay, all the other bonuses are new. Ready? Bonus number 1 is a brand new mini course. It's vocabulary review games. So basically what I did is I took 6 of my favorite games for reviewing vocabulary. They're all a lot of fun. A couple of them have variations. So like there's even kind of more than 6 games because I included all the variations. For each game, there's a video tutorial of me showing you how it works, like how to teach it. And that includes instructions on if you want to play it as a group or if you want to play it in a one-to-one lesson with your student. A couple of them even have like self-study versions that your student could play for practice at home on their own. And there are instructions for if you want to play it online or in person. For the online versions, I give you the Google Slide template. So, like some of the templates that you're seeing here, like this categorizing game, there are a bunch of variations of it. You'll actually just get the template, you plug in the words and play it with your students. And there's instructions as to how. If you're not confident in the tech, don't worry. I show you in the video, like how you share it with your students so they're actually interacting together or with you, like playing the games online. So I had so much fun creating this vocab review games mini course. Can you think of any other kind of game type things that you might like? Not just vocab. Perhaps you might like some grammar games. I'm going to go ahead and create a grammar review games and maybe not even review. You could use it as review or you could use it as like, I'm going to call it practice actually. You could use it as practice if you prefer. So like perfect for freer practice. Some of them even work as controlled practice. A variety of levels and all of the games, just like with vocab, right? You can slot in different words. I will show you how to use the same game for different grammar. I put 6+ here because I'm still creating the content and I could actually think of 9. So there might end up being more than 6. But again, all of these will work for groups, one-to-one, or some for self-study. I'll give you a video tutorial for each one and you will get the actual activity templates for each game. You've got vocab, you've got grammar. Any suggestions in the chat? Maybe one other thing you might like? I'm also going to give you the pronunciation games mini course. So again, all of these are bonuses for free if you enroll an online English teacher within the next couple of days. So again, I've got 8 different pronunciation games actually. So there may end up being more than 6. You'll get a video tutorial for each one, and you're going to get all of the slide templates and materials that you need to play these with your students. Okay, the final bonus is the one that's really insane. I've never done this before, but this is something that I'm thinking about offering soon. And so I'm going to offer it as a bonus as my test run. This is probably worth more than the entire cost of the course, but essentially what it is a done for you customized curriculum. So basically, what I'm going to give you as a bonus is 6 1-hour lessons, or if you teach longer courses, you could, it could be 3 lessons or 2 or whatever. It's going to be 6 hours worth of curriculum. You get to tell me what you want, and I'm going to make it for you. So you tell me what level, you tell me what types of lessons you want. If you want them all grammar, great. If you want a variety, great. You tell me if you want any particular theme, and tell me a little bit about your students. What do they like? Do they have particular strengths and weaknesses? Do they like games? Do they not? You tell me, and I'm going to make it for you. I've never done this before. I may never do it again, but I got excited and I'm going to try it. I mean, I'm going to do it, but if I don't like it after this, then I might not ever do it again. So, if you are in on this bonus, you are just getting really lucky that you're getting a completely customized curriculum. I will have it done for you by the end of June, but it's going to be first come, first serve. And it's for only this particular bonus only is just for the first 5 people to pay in full for the course. And I'm just going to go in order. So the first person to pay in full is the first person whose curriculum I make. Does that make sense? And obviously, for each of those 6 lessons, the lesson plan and all of the materials will be done for you included. PowerPoint or Google Slides, you can pick. Okay, how does this sound? Let me know in the chat. Um, all of these bonuses are available just until this Friday, May 30th. So just to clarify, anyone who signs up, pay in full or payment plan, there is a 6-month payment plan, by Friday, you're getting the course, obviously, self-study or live practicum, depending on what you sign up for. You're also getting the grammar guide and all 3 of the review games, the practice games courses, no matter what. If you sign up by Friday, if you are one of the first 5 people to pay in full for the self-study or the live practicum version, then you're also getting the done for you curriculum. And again, you call it. Like you tell me what you want, I'll make it for you. Okay, so just quickly, and then we will get to our Q&A. You might be wondering, should I do the live practicum or not? My advice for you would be, if you already have a lot of online teaching experience, you probably don't need to. Like if you're confident teaching online already, but you just want to elevate your lessons, then I would say go for the self-study. So for example, this is what a few of my self-study graduates had to say. Both of them had already been teaching online, but they just wanted to be better at it. So, like Darrell said, my biggest takeaway is that it has completely elevated my lessons, and I'm nowhere near as stressed as I used to be about planning. Camilla said that she basically just printed out all the templates, laminated them, which I love, and she was just using those to cut down on her planning time. If you don't have a ton of teaching experience already, then I would recommend you do the live practicum. And that could mean, like Olga, you have zero teaching practice experience at all. She signed up with literally no teaching experience, and she came away feeling like I can actually do this. Brock, on the other hand, had years of really high level teaching experience, but it was exclusively in person. So he took the live practicum just to practice the online aspect. And he described himself as going from having zero online skills to feeling fully confident supporting his students online. If you're wondering, is this worth the investment? I mean, with this bonus, it's yeah. Yes. This curriculum bonus is like worth double the investment. But even without that, if you're wondering, is it worth the investment? There is a payment plan option, as I mentioned. So if you want to do monthly payments, it's only $232 per month for the live practicum version for 6 months. Or you can get started on the self-study for only $147. And you do get access, full access to the course with the first payment and all the bonuses. The only bonus you don't get is the curriculum design one. That's just for pay in full. You can also ask yourself, what would it take to earn this investment back? So if you think about it, if you want to make $1,000, which is kind of in between the two prices, right? Just to give us an average here. If you could teach at $25 an hour, 10 hours a week, that would be basically $1,000, right? If you could make $250 a week, you could make back your investment in a month with just 5 students learning with you twice a week. And obviously, if you increase it, like if you charge 40 hours, you're going to make that amount back in a lot less. Like you could maybe even have 3 students and make that back, the entire investment back in a month with just 3 students. And if you play with it, if you use the information you learn in Module 10, teach a 1 month group class, charge $100 a student, you could enroll 10 students and basically make back your investment. And again, if you increase the price, you would only have to enroll 5 students. Okay. Other questions. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just to get to the Q&A. But just in case you're wondering, I've had this question come up quite a bit. How does Online English Teacher compare to CELTA? A lot of things are similar. I am a CELTA trainer as well, so I designed it understanding the CELTA methodology, and obviously the frameworks are quite similar. In both cases, you're going to get that communicative methodology, very student-centered teaching, lesson frameworks, hands-on practice if you do the live practicum, and this culture of reflection and feedback. The difference is Online English Teacher has obviously a lot more about how to adapt that same methodology to work online. You're also getting lifetime access as opposed to limited access. It's also organized by lesson type. So instead of learning all of it at once, you're going to go lesson by lesson. Module 9 and 10, they will show you how to get set up for freelance teaching and give you more kind of business tools and training for going freelance than you would get on CELTA. And then in addition, you're getting all 9 of my demo lesson plans plus the guide and all of the observation videos instead of just a few. So just to sum up, enrollment for Online English Teacher closes in general a week from today on Tuesday. So you'll want to get in before then if you want to join. But again, all of the bonuses expire on Friday. So all of the mini courses and the grammar guide. And then that curriculum design is just for the first 5 people. Okay, questions. Here's the link again in case you need it. And let me get to our Q&A. If you've got questions now before we wrap up here, either drop them in the chat or in the Q&A box. Okay, so question. Don't you think that the same lesson structure following the frames you adapt could be boring with time because students are used to the same routine? It's a good question, and this is actually a common question. So teachers worry, like, well, if I'm just using the same frameworks over and over, doesn't that get boring? No, weirdly, because you're using different material. So I think if you're only teaching reading and you use the exact same reading framework every single time, maybe. But even then, like if you're mixing in authentic text, if you're mixing in different types of tasks, because remember, like a GIST task has the same aim every time, for example, but it isn't always the same activity. Like a GIST task could be choose the best title. It could be write a one sentence summary. It could be write a one sentence summary and then put it in the chat and then read all the one sentence summaries in the chat and then vote on the best one. Like once you know how to play with it, right? Like it's not gonna get bored. It's kind of like, well, don't you get bored with impressionist paintings because it's all the same style? Like, I mean, obviously if you hate that one style, sure, but like, do you know what I mean? It's gonna be different, so different every single time that it's a completely different lesson, even if you're using the same framework. And my guess is if you feel that way, you're probably not maximizing your use of the frameworks. Like you just need more training to use the structure more creatively. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, question. What is your attitude to the quality of lesson plans created by ChatGPT? And oh yeah, you clarified personal opinion. What is your personal opinion on the quality of lesson plans created by ChatGPT? Um, my take on AI for teaching, my feeling is that it kind of is the same as using a course book in some ways, maybe in a less reliable way, that like either way, whether you're using ChatGPT to create a lesson plan or you're going right down the course book, it just shows me that you don't know why you're doing the things that you're doing. So my thought is if you're using ChatGPT to create a whole lesson plan, there's sort of a bigger question there of like why are you a teacher? To put it bluntly, like why do you like what you're doing? I think I'm just to me, there's a big difference between using ChatGPT to create an entire lesson plan versus using ChatGPT to create activities. I have observed some great lessons that relied on AI to create individual activities, right? Like I know I have my framework, I know I need a detailed task. I could generate that in ChatGPT and then evaluate it and make sure that it works. But having ChatGPT create an entire lesson plan, I feel like is kind of like I think you're still going to need to I think you're still going to need to be able to evaluate the quality of each stage and whether or not your lesson is achieving the main aim overall. So like if you're using ChatGPT maybe to create like the bare bones and then you're adapting, fine. Yeah, I think it should be a tool. It should not be the be all end all. That's my personal opinion. Curious to hear if others have other opinions or experience. Okay, Taylor asked, are frameworks still appropriate and useful when teaching beginners? Yes, you can still use the frameworks when teaching beginners. The difference is number one, you're not going to have skills lessons quite the same way. Like you're probably not going to have a whole lesson that is only speaking fluency. Like if we're teaching a speaking lesson, the aim is typically fluency. Same with writing, right? Is writing fluency. That's going to be tough with beginners simply because they don't have that level of fluency yet. So most likely with beginners, you'll be teaching vocabulary, functional language, and then as we get a bit further on, maybe grammar. But from there, you can still basically use the same frameworks. They're just going to look a lot different. So, like for the lead in, instead of saying, discuss this question with your partner in breakout rooms, because that's way too much, right? It might just be, look at the picture. What do you see? And so you're still activating background knowledge. You're still setting context, you're still engaging the students, but it's done in a way that's manageable. I do have a how to teach beginners course, if that's something that you're interested in, where you can see examples of everything I'm talking about. Let me know in the chat. Actually, I'll just drop the link in the chat. There you go. And in that course, you'll have a couple of how-tos, like how to use the frameworks to teach beginners. And then you'll also have two different observations. You actually observe me teach two different beginner lessons so you can see exactly how it works. One is actually a listening lesson, and one is a systems. It's um, prepositions. Wow, just had a brain fart. Prepositions. So whether you call that grammar or vocab, it's kind of on the fence, but yeah. How does one give a writing lesson on Zoom? Using the framework, number one, the framework still works. And then number two, using the right tools. So you can use Google Docs actually in a pretty simple way, which I show you in Online English Teacher in Module 8. I will show you exactly how to use Google Docs to teach an effective writing lesson where the students are writing in real time on the same Google Doc, and you're able to monitor and look at all of their writing forming in real time during the lesson. You'll also see that happening in the lesson observation. So in my demo lesson that you observe in Online English Teacher, the students write a travel blog, and like you'll see me flipping around on the Google Doc, and like you'll see their writing coming to life in real time. It's really cool. But yeah, it is absolutely possible. And I've observed lots of great writing lessons in the live practicum also. Question, what system do you use to create your slides? I personally like PowerPoint just because it's what I started with, and so now I'm the fastest with it. So I use PowerPoint. This is all PowerPoint, but I also use Canva for graphics. So like this was created on Canva. Most of my graphics were created on Canva. Um, there is, there are actually two, not just one. There are actually two whole video training sessions on all of my PowerPoint tips and tricks if you want to copy them in Online English Teacher. Those are in the bonus module, which is online board work and visuals, you'll learn and you can steal all of my PowerPoint hacks. So what I do, if you haven't noticed, I basically leave my slides in edit mode and I just minimize the slide previews. Like these are the slides that we looked at. Instead of going up here to slideshow, I just leave them in edit mode as I teach or as I present, because that way, if I want to be dynamic with my slides, right? Like if I want to add something, I want to put somebody's comment up. I want to highlight something or mark something. I can go to my draw tool, right? And like I can interact with my slides very quickly, and it works like an interactive whiteboard versus in presenter mode, you can't do that. So that's what I do for all my teaching. And again, I'll show you exactly how to do that in Online English Teacher. Good question, Beatrice. How and where do you store your resources to find what you need quickly? I'm really not good at organizing resources. So what I've done on my desktop, I just have a folder called materials or English materials. Inside that folder, I have a different folder for each level. And then inside each level, I have a folder for different lesson types. So like I could go to English materials, upper intermediate, grammar, causative, and find lesson material to teach the causative, if that makes sense. So that's the system that works for me. I'll also just try to label things super clearly so that I can use my search tool on my computer to find what I need as well. So like I'll label like grammar causative freer practice or something like that. So even if I just search freer practice, I know all the things with freer practice are going to come up, and then I can find them more easily that way too if I need to. Hello. Oh yeah, okay. The question came up about not reading aloud. Got it. I'm going to come to that in just a second. So question first. Um, I love the new bonuses. Will the vocab, grammar, and pronunciation games be made available if we already own Online English Teacher? Yes. If you already own Online English Teacher, they will be made available most likely, although I can't guarantee when. But if you already own Online English Teacher, you will be eligible for a discount. But if you do not own Online English Teacher yet, this is the best, fastest way to get them all for free and not have to pay it all. Okay, question. When the teacher monitors writing, for example, in a Google Doc, what does the teacher do with the information she sees as she monitors the writing? Is this done right away? Good question, Louise. So, two things. One, the most basic thing you're doing is just checking that everybody's on task and you're managing timing. So, like, what I'm looking for is there a student who's not getting started at all? In that case, I need to check in with that student and figure out what's going on, right? Are they not able to access the doc? Are they not able to think of ideas? Are they not into this task? Like, I can get them on track and I can check progress. Like, is somebody, two paragraphs in and someone's already only written two sentences? I need to manage my timing in terms of, okay, I need to give this person a fast finisher task so this person has some more time to catch up. So one thing is just the timing and making sure they're on task. The other thing is looking for errors and other things I can give feedback on. So obviously, one thing you can give feedback on are actual errors, grammar errors, spelling errors, vocab errors, whatever. But remember, you can also give feedback on other bigger picture things so that the students don't feel like you're only just nitpicking mistakes. Like you could also give feedback on task achievement. Does the content make sense for what you've asked? Like, if it's a travel blog, is this appropriate content for a travel blog? You could give feedback on functional language. Did they use expressions for, again, let's just use travel blog for the example. Did they use expressions for giving recommendations and advice or stating their opinion? Uh, did they organize the text in a cohesive way that makes sense according to the genre? Did they use features of the genre, like the type of language that they're using, the way it's organized? Is that the way a travel blog would typically be laid out? So you can be looking for all of those things and taking some notes as well. In terms of whether or not you're giving feedback right away, I like to be in the background, not sharing my screen, creating a slide with some errors and some examples of high-level language that I can go over immediately after we've finished the writing, like it's the final stage in a writing lesson. We'll do the error correction. And then I will often, if it's a private student or if it's like a group of my own students and we have more time for homework, I will also give some feedback on those other things I mentioned, maybe individually. And then the students can write a final draft for homework. Like I might email video feedback to my students about more stuff, task achievement, functional language, all of that. Hopefully that's helpful. That's a great question. Okay, question. Why not read aloud for a pronunciation sub lesson in a reading lesson? Why is it not recommended? Okay, so the reason why reading aloud is not recommended in general is because it takes a really long time and it doesn't really help with reading comprehension. So if this is a reading lesson, it's a reading lesson. That is the main aim that I chose, right? For myself, if I'm the teacher, it's a reading lesson. Then what is my goal? Is my goal to help students with pronunciation or is my goal to help students with reading comprehension? Feel free to play along in the chat if you want to answer my questions. Reading comprehension, right, is my goal if this is a reading lesson. So if I'm then spending a whole bunch of time getting students to read the text out loud to help their pronunciation, that has nothing to do with the main aim of reading comprehension. If the aim is comprehension, the students need to be allowed to read silently to answer the reading comprehension task, right? And I'm going to use the framework. I'm going to give them a gist task, then a detailed task, and we're going to progress through the framework. They have the task up front. Like if you know the technique for teaching reading that I cover in Module 2 of Online English Teacher, then like you will be helping students with comprehension, and that involves them reading silently. If, on the other hand, my goal is pronunciation, and it's not a reading lesson, it's pronunciation, there are much more fun, efficient ways to teach pronunciation than having my students read an entire text out loud. Because just reading the entire text out, like if there's no purpose, like what are you doing? Like literally, what are you doing in that scenario? Are you saying that you're going to have students read an entire text out loud and every time they make a mistake, you're going to stop and correct them? Like That sounds pretty torturous, to be honest. This is an entire article that we're doing this with, number one. And typically, if we do want to focus on pronunciation, then there should be an additional focus. Like, am I practicing the difference between two specific vowel sounds? If so, it would be much more efficient to do that, like using minimal pairs or using one of the pronunciation games that I will show you in the mini course. That's a bonus. Um, you could practice much in a much more targeted way. If your goal is to help students with pronunciation of a text, ooh, you just got there's a thumbs down. I don't know how that showed up. Um, if your goal is to help students read something like a speech, right? Or like a toast where they're practicing like pausing and intonation and like performance kind of speaking. Again, that's not going to be an article then. That's going to be a speech or a toast, something that they write or something short that you write, which they then practice multiple times, again, in a very targeted way where they're inserting where they want to pause and practicing it multiple times alone to themselves in front of the mirror before they're reading it aloud in front of other people. So I just don't see any way that reading an entire text together is going to help with pronunciation in a way that is actually meaningful versus like very tedious. Hopefully that's helpful. I can absolutely get on my soapbox when it comes to this particular topic. But yeah, it doesn't help with comprehension and it doesn't really help with pronunciation either if it's an entire text. Yeah. And if pronunciation is something that you're interested in, I have games. So my pronunciation games, this mini course, it's going to be really cool. I've got games that are just for specific sounds, whether it's vowel sounds like pronunciation bingo, or pronunciation battleship works for consonants or vowel sounds. Like those are perfect for practicing individual sound distinctions with minimal pairs. Or this pronunciation journey that's from Mark Hancock's pronunciation games that I'm going to give you an adapted version of. But I also have games that practice stress, individual syllable stress in words, also stress in sentences, and I have a couple games that practice intonation in longer sentences. So in conversation and also in an individual sentence, stress and intonation. So those are times when students will technically be reading out loud, right? But they're reading very specific sentences for a very specific purpose and a very specific context, not an entire article. Okay, other questions? Questions, comments, anything else? Okay, don't forget if you want all of the bonuses for Online English Teacher, all the mini courses are available for free as bonuses through Friday. And when you go, actually, I can just show you. When you go to the Online English Teacher page, which I have shared in the chat, you're going to see the timer counting down. That's showing you how long you have until the bonuses expire. So basically, when you click on that link that I shared with you in the chat, it is going to take you here. You'll get a review of everything that's included in the course, and then you can decide if you want to do self-study or live practicum, and if you want to do pay in full or payment plan. And then basically, this is how long you have until all the mini courses and the grammar guide bonuses expire. Again, the do do it for, I was going to say do it for you. The done for you curriculum is just for the first 5 people. So the timer doesn't actually matter for that. It's just first 5 people. Once it's done, it's done. And that's only for pay in full. But again, as soon as I see that you're one of the first 5 people, either for the self-study or the live practicum for the done for you curriculum, I'm going to reach out to you and we're going to start talking about it. So I'm going to reach out and say, okay, tell me about your students. What level do you want? What kind of lessons do you want? You tell me, and I will start making your curriculum. Okay, last call for questions. Looks like we're wrapping up. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you being here with me. We have another webinar this coming Friday, which is all about teaching authentic English. So same time, same link. I will send you a reminder before, and I can't wait to see you there. All right. Bye, everyone.